Hello, my name is Danny Nolan and I'm the Director of Chassis Sim Technologies. And welcome to this latest Chassis Sim video tutorial. And today, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me incredible pleasure to announce the winners and the results of the Chassis Sim Race Engineering Competition for 2021. So, let's get started. Okay, first things first, a bit of an introduction, overview, a little bit of background. Okay, first things first, you had 60 or so entrants, and a big thank you to everyone for their great attitude, just like last year. And I, for one, was very, very moved and very touched by all this because the enthusiasm this year again was positively infectious, and a huge shout out to everyone who participated. Now, in terms of the car, it wasn't as difficult as last year's because effectively the car that we were basing this on was pretty much a derivative of the LP560 GT3 template, which is, I regard, probably one of Chassis Sim's most well-sorted templates. So in that regards, it certainly didn't have the sort of extreme quirks that last year's car had. That being said, there were a few little traps in there for young players that we're going to discuss, but the thing that sort of separated this year's winning entries from the rest of the pack was there was a lot of really good attention to detail, and we're going to talk to you, and we're going to discuss that momentarily. Also, too, a little bit of an apology here. Unlike last year, we didn't get the opportunity to do a full driver in the loop analysis as we did last year. Now, unfortunately, that was due to the pandemic lockdowns that happened both in the Australian states of New South Wales and Victoria. So my apologies for that. We did do some DIL evaluation, but it wasn't as far as it was last year because everyone was locked down. It was highly difficult getting our hands on a tame race car driver. So that was it. That being said, though, we did make do with for assessing the drivability aspects. We put in a stability index and then did some stability index map, and then we did some sanity checking with the driver in the loop rig. So that's basically where things sort of fell out for this year's competition. Okay, so what the winning entries did, a common theme for the winning entries this year was softening up the car, but using increased damping to get control back into the platform. And what we've got here is an example of this with what the winning entry did. So the baseline is coloured. The winning entry is black. So as you can see here, and I'll draw your attention to the third and the fourth traces where we've got the tyre loads for the front and the tyre loads for the rear. And if you take a look, apart from a few little spikes here, the increased damping really dialed out what was going on in terms of some of the peaks in terms of the tyre loads. But also too, if you take a look at the drivability aspects as well, this is stability index unfiltered. You can see there that the stability index was a lot more settled, and in particular, the top three went to a lot of trouble to sort that out, and a big kudos to them. The other thing that the winning entries did is that, particularly in the high-speed sections of Bathurst, where you're looking at mid-corner speeds of about 200 km/h plus, they were well within the aero sweet spot. So this is from the second place entry. So as you can see, the front ride height was 64 mil, and the rear ride height was about 80 mil. If you take a look at the LP560 GT3 template, that was the base aero map for the competition this year. That's exactly where you're generating the peak downforce. So really, again, like with last year, this is money for jam stuff. Making sure that you're in the aero sweet spot for particularly when you're in the high speed corners, is one of these things. Don't leave home without it. Yes, because this is a GT3 car, the effect is not as pronounced as what it was for last year's LMP2 Plus car. That being said, you're still looking at CLAs of about 2.3, 2.4. So this is one of these things. You don't leave home without it. Okay, traps for young players and areas of improvement. Okay, One thing that I saw, particularly for the Formula student crowd who participated in this, some entries went way too soft. Now, here was the thing: fast on the lap time simulation, an absolute rocket ship. When we ran it through the driver in the loop, it was a complete catastrophe. And for me, this really illustrates one of the things that I've always said about how you approach simulation. And a huge trap for young players is that when you're approaching simulation, and you see all, and this is also a common trap when you get on live when you get on live shaker rigs as well, is that you soften the car too up. You soften the car up way too much, and what happens is, particularly for a place like Bathurst, where you've got a lot of uphill, downhill, where you've got a lot of on-camber corners. If you're too soft, you're just going to vibrate. You are just going to wallow all over the place. The other thing too is that when you go too soft, and in this case, I mean, they were going in orders like of magnitude, like a fifth of the base spring rate, you sort of take out the tyre from when it was initially modelled as well. But I've discussed that at length in other tutorials, and no need to dwell on that. But again, it was also a very good learning experience for us as well, in the fact that when we got those really soft setups and we threw it on the driver in the loop, that for us was a very very big light bulb moment as well. So I guess the positives of all this is we all came away learning something. The other thing too is that, particularly one of the things I noticed with, particularly for the top five cars, those winning entries would have been great qualifying cars, but they would have been terrible race cars. Actually, I tell a lie. The guy got second place. One of the things he did very, very well, his car was incredibly drivable. You could have driven it for a whole stint. That being said, though, the common theme in the top 6 to 7 is that the cars were planted, you could point them out, but there were just those little bits of just going, oh, if I lean on this too much, the back could come around on you. So again, one of these things, a great qualifying car, but a real trap for young players when you're talking about running for a race stint. The other thing too is that I would have liked to have seen a little bit more tuning with the geometry and dampers, and particularly in that thing of, if you're going to go soft, you're going to have to raise up your suspension geometry so you can actually get the control of your platform back. And I didn't see a lot of that. So again, a thing to note for next year's competition. Again, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more tuning also done with the differential. That being said, you guys had about 100 or so simulations to play with, so I wasn't expecting miracles. So without further ado, here is your top 10, and I'm going to sit back. Let you guys let you all digest this, and we will see you in next year's Chassis Sim Race Engineering competition.